Let's hear it for the praise band. As you can see, I am neither Dean Josh nor Logan nor anyone else who normally does this, but today it's my great pleasure to introduce the speaker, who's a Calvary grad in '98 and then a seminary grad in 2001, and he's back again for more classes. So it's my great pleasure to introduce to you the Got Questions guy, Shay Hoodman.
So good morning, everyone. To start out, how many of you have ever used the Got Questions or website or the app before, just by a show of hands? So most everyone. So for hopefully after today, the rest of you will be able to raise your hand. So like Amanda said, I was a student here in 1998, graduate of the Bible College, now university, 2001 graduate of the seminary, and my whole time at Calvary, I had no clue what ministry God was calling me to. So I was a biblical studies major in Bible college, any biblical studies majors here, and in seminary, Christian theology, which are the 2 degree programs you take when you have no idea what ministry God's calling you to. So how many of you know for sure the ministry or career God is calling you to after you graduate? No doubt at all. A few of you. For the rest of you, I want you to say that is okay. Dedicate your life to the Lord. Ask God to use you, how He has gifted you, the skills He's given you, the life experience He's given you, and watch God do amazing things, because that's my story. So gotquestions.org. Do you know that there are 4.7 billion people worldwide with access to the internet? About 60% of the world population. You can reach more people through the internet than through any other medium. The most people use the internet for searching for information. Since we launched the website in February of 2002, I know this is probably going to hurt my heart, but how many of you were not born in February of 2002? A few. Okay. Ouch. That's okay. But since we launched the website in February of 2002, we've sent out email answers to over 669,000 questions. Those are people who visited the website, actually submitted a question to us, and received an answer. And then we've sent out over 190,000 answers in 17 other languages, which we'll discuss a little more briefly. So, Got Questions, the website, very simple concept. You can come to the website, ask any question you have about anything biblically related. We get questions about things not biblically related all the time. We most of the time tell them that's not what we do, nor do you want an answer from us on that topic. But people can come to the website, they can ask a question, they can search the site. We have, for example, if someone searched for, does God exist? Very common question, very important question, and they can land on this page, they can read the article, they can watch the video, they can listen to an audio, various other links, resources to study it further. So that's what we do. We use these search engines, so anytime someone searches for something online, we want them to land on our website and find the answer that way. We have nearly 8,000 frequently asked questions divided into categories on the website so people can quickly and easily find the answers to their questions. So top questions. Just think of anything controversial. Those are the most common questions we're going to get. Imagine you've probably had to write some papers on some of these topics already. Tough questions. These are the questions that, guess we need to give a biblical answer, but it gets a little more difficult, a little more personal. Like hits you where it hurts. The first time we got the question, why should I not commit suicide? And the question was, my life is meaningless. If you don't convince me otherwise, I'm going to commit suicide tonight. It's like, well, that's not one where you say, I'll get back to you in 24 to 48 hours. It's like, no, let's answer this question right away. So super, super important questions. And then funny questions. So how many of you have ever been typing, texting, or messaging on your phone, only to have your phone autocorrect your misspelling into something way worse than what it would have been to begin with? Well, as more and more people are using smartphones to access the website, we're getting some hilarious autocorrect fails. I thought I'd share a few of those with you this morning. So with all the people at the pool of Bethesda, why did Jesus only heal one paralegal? Think paralytic is the word they were looking for there. Why does God want us to care for orphans in Windows? Is it wrong to smoke marijuana? No, no. Now, being from Colorado, where it's been legal for a while now, this is something we deal with all the time. Why does the Bible warn against apostrophe? Like, apostasy is the word we're looking for there. How can I recognize a static attack? Instead of satanic, static attack, that's when your clothes like sticking to you. It's awful. What does it mean that he who endures to the end will be shaved? Sounds like a bad college dorm prank, if you ask me. Why did Jesus say your faith has made you swell? I mean, swell as in large or swell as in great? I'm not sure. Is it wrong to text God? I think test God is what they're looking for, but if anyone has God's cell phone number, I would really like that because I've got some questions. I'd love for him to answer directly. And then, so the funniest or even weirdest question of all time, is it wrong to take homeless people bowling and then gamble on which of them will win? No. No. Now I'm looking out and I can see some wheels turning. I'm like, no, you are not allowed to do this. But take the top questions, the tough questions, the funny questions, put them all together, and God is doing some amazing things. Just in 2021, we've had over 68 million visitors to the website. That's around 2,000 people on the website at all times. 100 million sessions, 140 million page views. We've answered nearly 40,000 personal questions already this year. We have a question of the week that goes out to email subscribers, have over 155,000 subscribers to that. And we have over 250 volunteers who serve with the ministry, help us answer the questions, write articles, translate, etc. Now, my favorite stat to share is obviously the gospel is the most important question you can answer for someone. The first time someone submitted a question, how can I know for sure I go to heaven when I die? I yelled over to my wife who was in the other room. I was like, can someone get saved on the internet? It haven't even registered with us that people would be asking these type of questions. We thought Got Questions would be a discipleship-focused ministry. Well, so far this year, over 2,200,000 people have visited one of the pages on our site that presents the gospel. And from that, we've had over 78,000 people indicate a decision to receive Christ as Savior. First 9 months of this year. How many of those, thank you. So how many of those are genuine first-time decisions to receive Christ? We have no idea. This is no different than someone coming forward at church, or you can only judge that by the fruit God produces in his or her life. But imagine if even 10% of those, or okay, if 78,000 people have indicated professions of faith, how many of the 2.2 million may have had a seed planted or may have received Christ and then not indicated anything to us? So yes, God is using the internet to lead people to Christ. So the internet, the most common way people begin the internet is searching for something, going to Google and searching for what they're looking for. 85% of our visitors find us through the search engines. So anytime someone searches for a spiritually related question, we want to be there with a biblically based answer. So probably can't read, you can read a little better. What would you imagine are some of the top questions we received over the last year and a half? So anything related to COVID, pandemic diseases, etc. So right now, if you search for what does the Bible say about pandemic diseases, or even anything close to this, Got Questions will usually come up at the top. Now, how many of you, if you search for something on Google, will go past page 1 in the results? Like if you don't find it on page 1, most likely they're not going to find what they're looking for. So there's a science to it. It's called search engine optimization. It's basically designing your website and or your app and then writing your content in such a way so that it does well in the search engines. So imagine you're trying to sell a product. Imagine you're trying to get someone to come to Calvary. You want people, if they search for Bible college or online Bible college, you want them to see Calvary listed highly. So what we do, everything we write, everything we do on Got Questions is designed to do what Google tells you to do in order to get high rankings like this. So millions and millions of people every month find us through searching online. So someone land on the article, what does the Bible say about pandemic diseases? So we are also online in 178 different languages. So it's not just people who speak English who have questions. And English, you can find resources aplenty. I mean, there's more books, more websites, more apps, everything you can imagine is available in English. Well, in some other languages, this is definitely not the case. So it's a few years after we launched Got Questions where I guess it took a while for God to finally get it through my skull. People who speak other languages need this too. So we started with Spanish, then went to Chinese, German, French, etc. Right now, 62% of our traffic comes from outside the United States. The people all over the world are accessing Got Questions in various languages. So and we also have question and answer teams, people who can actually answer personally submitted questions in 17 different languages. So approximately 90% of the world population can speak one of these 17 languages. So almost everyone in the world with access to the internet can submit a question to us and have someone respond with an answer. Top 30 countries, just to give you a quick picture of where most of our traffic comes from. Some countries on the list that you'd expect, and some maybe that you wouldn't. So, to give you an idea of the numbers we shared at the beginning, here's what it looks like in terms of some of these countries. Indonesia, a strongly Muslim country. Almost 500,000 people have visited the website so far this year. Going down the list a little bit, Christmas Island. I have no idea. I think that's in the Pacific somewhere. I would like to visit there. North Korea. I wish this number was bigger, but Vatican City. Hopefully the one person who visited the website was the Pope, because that would be awesome. And also getting local. So we can see the big picture. Here's what Got Questions looks like around the world. Also, here's what it looks like in your own backyard. Just the top locations in Missouri. So probably recognize most of the ones at the top of the list, but then skip a few down to Belton, Missouri. 1,246 visitors to the website so far this year, most of which are probably from here, I'm guessing, based on the hands that went up at the beginning. So we also have apps for iPhone, Android, and Alexa. You can download on your device and browse and ask questions to your heart's content. Nearly 5 million sessions so far this year. YouTube. Did you know that YouTube is the #2 search engine in the world? More people go to YouTube and just search for things than any place other than Google. We have over 500 video-based answers to questions, and those have been viewed over 4 million times so far this year. And that calculates out to, wow, 189,000 hours of people watching our videos. Got Questions in American Sign Language. We have a few videos out there where someone signs the answer to people who, American Sign Language is their heart language. They can read English, but to them it's like reading a second language. So it's another way we can reach people. We launched a podcast where we kind of take a deeper dive into some of these issues and try to discuss them amongst our staff or have some guests on as well. I just launched this earlier this year, and I'm already seeing a lot of really cool things happen there. How many of you have ever wanted to search for what does Philippians 4:13 mean? Or wanted to ask a question specific to a Bible verse? Well, a few years ago we launched BibleRef.com, which is going to be eventually a verse-by-verse commentary on the entire Bible. Or anytime you go to Google and search for what does John 4:12 mean? What does Revelation 3:8 mean? We'll have an article that answers that question, explaining that verse, and then also next verse, previous verse, the entire chapter, to give people a different way to approach some of these issues. With Got Questions, we approach it more topically. With BibleRef, it's more focused on verses of the Bible. We have a site for teens, 412teens.org, based on 1 Timothy 4:12. Anyone tell me what 1 Timothy 4:12 says? Anyone? Do not let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example. That's where we got the idea for 4:12, where we just answer the questions in a little more teen-friendly format. Then a site for kids, Camp Want an Answer, where it's the camp counselor who's answering questions for the kids, and this is the site where my wife is the primary editor for. So how to help? I'm glad you asked, because that's really awkward if I just throw that out there. So you can serve. I know doing more writing is something all of you really, really want to do when you're writing all these papers for Calvary, but you find some free time after you graduate. We would love to have more Bible college and seminary graduates writing for our ministry. We invite you to please be praying for us. The internet is a spiritual battlefield, just like any other mission field. So please be praying for us for wisdom, how to answer these questions, wisdom for knowing what the future of Got Questions is supposed to be. And also just tell people about the website. Even as Bible college or seminary graduates, you're sometimes going to be asked questions that you don't know the answer to. And so always be willing to say, I don't know, but I'll get back to you, because that is way better an answer than giving them a really poor answer. Been there, done that. And also, hey, I may not know the answer, but I know this great website you can go to. We'd love for you to tell people about Got Questions and encourage them to visit. So, got questions? Anything you would like to know? Anything you'd like me to explain further? And before we jump into that, my main encouragement to you is, when I was in Bible college and seminary, I had no clue what God was calling me to, because the ministry he was calling me to didn't exist yet. And so that may be the story for some of you. You may be worried right now, I'm about to graduate, I have no idea what God wants me to do. God knows exactly what he wants you to do. So seek him with all your heart. Be willing to do whatever he calls you to do. Look for ways to use the gifts and skills he's given you, and watch God do amazing things. At some point, I think it was late 2001, a few months before we launched the website, I prayed something to the effect of, God, I really need something to do with my free time. Well, don't pray that prayer unless you mean it, because I don't think I've had a moment of free time for most of your lifetime. So what would you like to know? Anything you'd like to know about Got Questions?
Are doing Calvary questions on Twitter if you guys want to submit through there, or you can raise your hands and we can call on you. There are a couple questions that have come in. Do you face heavy censorship in China and similar nations? If so, is it based on the topic of the questions?
So China, obviously, the Great Firewall of China. Oh, cool. Yes. So yes and no. It's thankfully been very intermittent. Most of the time, you can access the website fully in China. Other times, we get more questions to our Chinese website from outside of China than we do in China, which is very sad. Right now, we are not blocked at all in China. We are blocked in North Korea, as you saw, and there's occasionally some of the Muslim countries will block our content because we're seeking to evangelize Muslims, which is illegal in those countries. But currently in China, not so much, but at any moment they could very easily flip a switch and block us almost entirely from China.
Will Bible Ref be available as a Logos/eSword download at some point, or would it possibly go to print?
So BibleRef.com, there are 31,170 something verses in the Bible. We are about a third of the way done. So that's a lot of what does this verse mean articles. So turning that into a book, that would be a really, really, really big book. Possibly. We do have a good relationship with Logos Bible Software. There is a Got Questions app for Logos that you can download. So yes, I think eventually. Trying to decide, do we want to do that now? There's an app for Bible Ref that will be launched soon. And I know I didn't share a stat, but so far this year, we've had over 10 million visitors to BibleRef.com. So that site is growing rapidly as well. And a lot of people just search for, what does a certain Bible verse mean? So that's another huge way for us to use the internet to reach people for Christ.
We have another comment. It said, thanks for all your work. I got questions. It helps my papers immensely.
So that's funny, but so 3 years ago, I don't know if any of you were here when I shared at chapel 3 years ago, a student tweeted in and said, today I got to meet the co-author of half of Calvary's research papers. And it's like, okay, unless you're going to give me an honorary doctorate or something. And we've had people at other Bible colleges and seminaries had to come out with a how to quote, properly quote from a website, mainly because of Got Questions. And I mean, our target audience is not really Bible college or seminary level. We're reaching people who don't have formal Bible college education. But yeah, a lot of the stuff that we have, Melissa and I have commented, have been really, really handy for Got Questions to be around when we were in Bible college. But that was when I remember the Oklahoma City bombing that happened, I don't remember what year that was. It was when I was in Bible college, trying to load up pictures based on the connection we could get here. It was brutally slow. So I'm happy for you guys. You have the internet and all its glory and high speed and can do all sorts of great things. But that would have been super, super handy when we were your age and in Bible college. And I probably wouldn't have cheated, but it would have been a tremendous temptation. I'll tell you that.
Does Got Questions employ people, or does each one have to raise their own support? Is Got Questions itself donor supported?
Okay. So, excellent question. We have 10 employees, 8 of which are full-time, 2 part-time, who either manage one of the sites that we run, who either write or edit articles, who answer questions, who lots of contractors who do translation work or do app development or do database work or all sorts of technical things that I don't even really understand anymore. All of our employees are paid a salary through the funds that come into the ministry. And regarding how that money comes in, we are funded about 80% through donations. There's people who have found the ministry helpful and they want to donate towards it. And then 20% other Christian ministries we allow to advertise on the site. So you may have seen in one of the pictures, we have ads for Compassion that run, Logos Bible Software, but Dallas Theological Seminary advertises on our site, and a few others. Just like-minded ministries that we're happy to promote, and they love the traffic we're able to send them through Got Questions.
Chris?
So I have kind of a layered question. I apologize, but you're good at answering questions. I am curious, how many people are involved in the answering of a single question, especially if the question is something that we have polarizing opinions, multiple opinions within this kind of corner of Christianity that we're in. And then at the same time, I'm also curious, like, how do you handle politically polarizing stuff like?
Well, I can't imagine what those questions might be right now.
But you were talking about pandemic, and I thought about vaccines, because there's a huge amount of people on both sides.
Yeah. So, excellent question. So if someone actually submits a question to us, they will immediately receive an email saying, hey, we received your question. It will then go to our database. And then typically the questions that come in today, tomorrow, one of our employees logs in and views all the questions, and we'll either assign those to a writer, or if it's a really easy one, like, where's the Bible verse that says this? Or what does the Bible say about something that that person can answer really quickly? But then the questions that get assigned, the writer will then have 2 to 5 days to answer the question. And then when they answer it, it comes back to the database. And then one of our employees will then proofread it before it's sent out to the person. We don't require our writers to agree with us on like absolutely everything. They do have to go through an application process where they agree with our statement of faith. They can answer a test question. We ask them to share their testimony and so forth. And especially when a writer's new, we review their stuff very, very closely. But we occasionally will even allow an answer to go out that, that's not how I would say it, but I think this is a biblically plausible answer, and therefore we will approve that. On politically charged things, as much as we would like to avoid it, a lot of political questions have a spiritual component to it, so we don't truly avoid those questions. We will try to publish an article on the website, like here is the official viewpoint, so we don't have to allow each and every person, like if I were to ask everyone in this room, what are the spiritual implications of getting or not getting the COVID vaccine? Imagine I would get like 50 different answers. We don't want that. So when it's something that's occurring frequently, something super important, we'll just come up with the official answer, put that on the website, and then use that for all of those. But for the questions that are submitted, we allow the writers to have a great deal of freedom in how they answer, the direction they take it, and just what the Lord is giving them to say in the answer within confines, of course.
Thank you.
I also have a two-part question. How many employees do you have, and is it the whole operation in one warehouse, or is it all separate?
Okay. We have 10 employees. So we're located in Colorado Springs. I grew up in Colorado, and after I graduated from seminary, my wife were looking for any excuse whatsoever to move back to Colorado. Of our employees, 7 of them are in Colorado Springs. 3 are living in other parts of the country. But in terms of our contractors, they're all over the country, all over the world, especially the translators. So all over the world, 24 hours a day, people are doing Got Questions related stuff. So it's really, really cool to see.
Deb?
This was kind of different than all the other ones. It's a little more personal. How did you get from not knowing where you're headed in college to when you were talking about day one of starting this? Like, what happened in between there that God led you towards this? Was there anything what happened there?
Sure. Aside from asking God for something to do with my free time, yes. So Melissa and I were both serving a local church. We attended Red Ridge Baptist Church when we lived here. I was teaching in their Sunday school program. We were both serving in a local Christian ministry, but we really felt there's something else God was calling us to. I remember back from shortly after I came to faith in Christ in my late teens, the youth pastor who was discipling me was like, Shay, I really think God's calling you to full-time ministry. But at that time, it's like, well, I don't really like public speaking. Teenagers drive me crazy even when I was a teenager, so there goes youth ministry. I have no musical talent whatsoever, so none of the traditional ministries in the church really made sense to me. So it was basically, the internet was just becoming more popular, high-speed internet was becoming available. I always loved technology, loved to write. So put that all together. We launched Got Questions thinking it was going to be a hobby. This will be something cool we do on the side in addition to whatever real ministry God calls us to. But little did we know this was the real ministry God was calling us to. And now, 20 years later, if you were to have told us what Got Questions was going to become, I think we would have been so freaked out, I don't know if we would have done it. But God grew the ministry at a slow but steady pace, taught us things along the way, brought people across our path who could teach us what we needed to know about how to do these sorts of things, like all the logistics of running a 501c3 nonprofit. It gets complicated, accounting and all this stuff. It's been great and powerful to see how God has orchestrated it all in the right timing so that we didn't get freaked out, didn't make huge mistakes, those sorts of things. So there's no like one aha moment. Maybe it was about 6 months after we launched the site and someone emailed us and said, hey, I've submitted like 87 questions to you guys and you guys have answered them all. I'd like to make a donation. Are you guys tax deductible? And I was like, someone wants to give us money to do this cool little hobby? That was kind of like the first little wake-up call. I was like, maybe this is going to be bigger than what we were originally thinking. So, yeah. Excellent questions, all.
So I feel like since this is on the internet, it's kind of could be a field for kind of like people trolling you and messing with you. So
No.
Crazy how that works. So when someone submits a question, it just goes to your people first. It can't be like openly viewed because I can imagine some guy with a grudge against Christianity or something can put all these awful lewd questions into the search with you guys. Has that ever been a problem? Just like people trying to mess with your site, trying to hack into it? Have you ever just had that like attack?
We do know that hacks have been attempted, but none of them have ever been successful, especially as the site has grown. I know the essentials, but I'm not a network security specialist by any stretch. So God putting us in contact with the right people who can do that stuff for us. And now it'd be pretty hard, but if Facebook can be hacked, Got Questions can be hacked too. So it's God protecting us. We give him all the glory for that. In terms of trolls, a lot. Thankfully, most of the questions we get are legitimate, but almost every day there's someone asking some clearly trollish type of question. Often, I leave it up to the person doing the questions that day, whether to delete it or whether to answer it. There's sometimes we've answered a troll, answered them repeatedly, and have them eventually emails and say, okay, I can't believe you guys even bothered responding to me, and have people who've come to faith in Christ that way. So you have to be very discerning about not casting your pearls before swine, but not everything that looks like swine is swine. So trying to find the right balance there. But yes, trolls exist, and we get them all the time. Sometimes we will occasionally troll them a little back, but in a Christ-honoring way, of course. Yes. So.
Abigail.
Yeah, how can a person get involved if they want to volunteer or, I don't know, seek a job or something?
So on the website, there's a link that says Serve With Us. That's where you can start the application process to be a volunteer, question answer. And again, I would love to have more Bible college and seminary graduates on the team. It's nice to have someone with the solid biblical background, such that Calvary provides. We know we can assign them some of the tougher ones because it's stuff that you should be comfortable with. Employees, and we don't have a process, but oftentimes some of our current employees are former volunteers. So that would be a great way. But if you have a particular skill set and think it'd be great for Got Questions, you can go to the Contact Us page and say, hey, I'm a Calvary grad. I would love to serve in something like Got Questions. Do you have any openings that will eventually make it to me or another appropriate individual, and we'll see how the Lord leads.
There is another question on Twitter. It says, do you have a strategy for reaching countries such as North Korea, or is that more dependent on the government there and what they allow?
Yeah. So the strategy for most countries is to get as much content translated into whatever the main language of that country that we possibly can, and therefore through using Google. Thankfully, Google is the number one search engine in like 95% of countries who are out there. There are a few others, search engines that are dominant in certain countries like Russia or Korea. North Korea, they have such a stranglehold over the internet in that country, it's virtually impossible to get in. So the strategy is hope and pray that God eventually tears down that horrible regime that's there and allows the people freedom of religion, freedom of travel, freedom of whatever. Because you look at maps, Google has some really cool reports we can look at that shows the amount of traffic that comes from, and South Korea is completely lit up. Everywhere in the country is hitting Got Questions.org. In North Korea, there's nothing. And it's really, really sad to see things like that. Because people in North Korea need the gospel probably more than almost any other place in the world.
Have you ever received a question that you just simply didn't
Yes.
know the answer to?
For sure, and still do. I mean, there are some questions that the Bible doesn't answer, and typically they will be, why did God allow blank, and enter whatever horrible tragedy that person went through into that blank. And I can't answer that question. I can give you Bible verses on you should to continue to trust God when you're going through difficult times. Here's why you should continue to look to the Bible for answers even when the Bible doesn't directly answer that question. But ultimately, there's some questions where the answer is just, I don't know. Trust God, and then hopefully later in life, whether that's soon later or much later, you can look back and then understand why God allowed that. There's some things that have happened in my life that at the time I was like, God can't possibly have a redeeming purpose in this, only to a few years later look back, there it is. So those are typically the hardest ones to answer. There's a lot of questions we get that we have no idea what the person's talking about. Often something hot will hit the culture that we've never been heard of before. Something weird will happen in a movie. Like one time, someone asked us, we kept getting this question, is Michael the archangel going to join Satan in his rebellion? We're like, where is this even coming from? Evidently, there's this movie called Constantine, where Michael the archangel actually does that. And so weird stuff in pop culture can, for a time, impact the question. So thankfully, there's a thing called Google where you can look all these things up and, that's why people are answering these asking these questions. Here's how we should approach it.
Any more questions? why I'm hosting. Because the Hootmans are family friends, and we've known them for a long time. In fact, Melissa's parents still go to my church back home, so we've known them forever. And currently, I guess I'm a contractor with Got Questions. I write articles for the website, and yeah, I just have a heart for the ministry because I've used it a lot when I have questions, and I love getting questions to answer for articles because they're things I never would have thought to ask, but that I actually don't know the answer to. Like, what does this verse mean? Or who is this person in the Bible? Just, it forces me to confront my faith head on and dig deeper into passages of the Bible that I had only ever like skimmed over before. Like, the he begot this person and begot that person. It's like, oh no, those genealogies mean something and connect people to different stories, and like, it's very cool to see those connections and then hopefully make those connections clear to other people as I answer questions. And I just really love the Hoodmans too.
So when Amanda first started writing, a couple of years ago, you started? Typically when a new writer comes on, especially I know they have a Bible college background, some of the first articles we had to write were some pretty tough ones that I knew were going to require some extra research, but we kind of did that on purpose just to see how sure, and she nailed it, of course. So, yeah. Anything else? So again, please let my main encouragement to you all to be dedicate your life to the Lord. Seek him with the gifts and the skills that he's given you, and think outside the box. Because when I graduated from Calvary, Got Questions was definitely outside the box. The first few times I tried presenting at a church, here's this great new ministry we're doing. Everyone's kind of like, that's never going to work. Well, 20 years later, obviously God had a big vision for what Got Questions was going to be. So who knows, maybe God's calling you to start the next great internet ministry that's going to replace Got Questions. So I'd hope that wouldn't happen soon, but if that was God's will, praise him for it. So seek the Lord with all your heart. Ask him to use you as he sees fit, and watch God do amazing things.
All right, I'll pray for you and your ministry, and then we'll be dismissed.
All right.
Dear Lord, thank you for today. Thank you that we can all come together and hear about this amazing ministry online and how big an impact and how it can reach people that maybe no one else can, God, through the internet. And I just pray that you will continue to bless Got Questions and lead the people who need to hear your word to the website. And I pray that it'll continue to be one of the top result in searches on Google and other search engines. And I just pray that you'll help them continue to grow and be translated into more languages and just reach more countries. And please bless Shay and Melissa as they continue your work and running the company and the everything that goes with that, Lord. And I just pray that you will continue to lead the people who need to hear about you and get their questions answered to the website. And in your name.